The Galactic Council chamber was quiet when the display showed what remained of New Horizon colony. Where 300 humans had lived just hours before, there was now only burned metal and ash. Most of them had been families with young children. Now they were all dead. Ambassador Jake stood at the human podium. His hands gripped the edges so hard that his knuckles turned white. Around him sat representatives from 47 different alien species. They looked uncomfortable as they shifted in their seats. The representative was different, was a large creature that looked like a giant insect. He made clicking sounds with his mouth parts. It sounded like he was laughing. "The do not recognize human claims to the Outer Rim territories," said. His words came through a translator device. "The colony was on disputed land. We had the right to remove people who did not belong there." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had read all the reports about the attack. The ships had appeared without any warning. They fired weapons from space first. Then soldiers came down and hunted the survivors. Parents had died trying to protect their children. They had recorded everything and sent it out as a message to all humans. They wanted everyone to know what happened when humans stepped out of line. 300 civilians, Jake said. His voice was quiet, but everyone could hear it. 87 of them were children under 10 years old. The council chair was a floating creature that looked like a jellyfish. It changed colors as it spoke. "Ambassador, we understand you are angry, but making this worse will not help anyone. They have a strong military. Humanity should try to find a peaceful solution." Jake looked up at all the aliens sitting in judgment. For 2 years, he had followed their rules. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council as new members. They were excited to be part of something bigger than themselves. They had agreed to limits on their military. They accepted that other species could tell them where they could and could not go. They had ignored insults from species that thought humans were stupid primitives from a dangerous world. They had been testing humanity for months. They attacked small stations in remote areas. They destroyed supply ships. Every single time, the Council told humans to be patient. Every time, Jake had told his government to wait. But this was different. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They had murdered human children. "The Human Federation requests that the Council officially condemn thee and make them pay money to the families of the victims," Jake said. He was still following the rules one last time. Clicked his mouth parts again in what seemed like amusement. "The Council agrees with territorial claims. This matter is finished." The Council chair changed colors to show it agreed. "The human request is, we encourage both sides to talk peacefully." Jake slowly gathered his documents. His hands had stopped shaking. A strange calm came over him. It was the kind of calm that comes when someone has made a final decision and knows there is no going back. "Then humanity leaves these proceedings," he said in a clear voice. "Starting right now, the Human Federation no longer accepts the authority of the Galactic Council in this matter." Shocked sounds came from all around the chamber. The Council chair's colors changed to show alarm. "Ambassador, you cannot just leave the Council. There are rules and procedures you must follow." "We followed your procedures," Jake said back. "We trusted your rules. 300 of our people are dead because we listened to you. Not anymore." He turned and walked toward the exit. His security team fell in step behind him. When he reached the door, he looked back one last time. "You wanted to know about humans," Jake said. His voice carried across the huge chamber. "You wanted to understand what makes us different. You are about to find out, and I promise you this. When it is over, you will remember. Every species in this galaxy will remember what happens when you kill human children." The door closed behind him with a hiss. In space above the Council home world, the human ship was getting ready to leave immediately. Captain Ben Foster stood on the bridge watching his crew work. They moved with grim purpose. The message from Earth had arrived hours ago on emergency channels with the highest security codes. "Navigation set course for the Outer Rim," Ben ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," his communications officer said quietly. Her name was Lieutenant Amy. "I am picking up military radio chatter. They are celebrating what they did. They are calling the colony attack a great victory. They are planning more raids on human settlements." Ben's face became hard. "Let them celebrate. It will not last long." "Captain," Amy continued, "the High Command is sending recordings of their attack to other species. They are making it into entertainment." Ben said nothing for a moment. Then he opened a direct channel to Earth Command. "This is Captain Foster. I need confirmation of the new rules of engagement." The answer came right away. Captain Foster, this is Fleet Admiral Santos. Your rules of engagement are now updated. Code name is Righteous Fury. You are weapons free. Show them what happens when they hurt our children. Ben looked at his crew. Every face showed the same thing, cold determination and focus. Helm, start the quantum drive, he ordered. All crew to battle stations. It is time to remind the galaxy why they called Earth a death world. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Council home world behind. The Galactic Council was still arguing about procedures and protocols. They did not understand yet that humanity had stopped asking for permission. The time for talking had ended. Now came something different. Now came the fury. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Santos stood in the command center buried deep under the mountains. Screens showed him where every human ship and base was located. Red marks showed positions. Blue marks showed human assets. For the first time in 2 years, those blue marks were moving with real purpose instead of just defending. "Get me status of all fleets," said. Commander Kate Williams came over with a computer pad. "All carrier groups are moving out. The 7th Fleet is heading toward the border. 3rd and 5th Fleets are taking defensive positions around our core worlds. Special Operations wants permission to start gathering intelligence." "Permission granted," said. "What about the civilians in the outer regions?" 90% have been moved to protected stations. The rest are coming in now. Nobody wants to be out there when this starts. Nodded slowly. He had spent 30 years in the military. He started as a fighter pilot and worked his way up to commander of all human forces. He had always believed in careful responses and measured actions. But the images from New Horizon Colony had changed something deep inside him. There was a time for patience. That time was over. The door opened. President Lisa Morgan walked in with her security team. Everyone in the command center stood up straight, but she waved them back to work. "Admiral, I need a full report," she said without wasting time. Pointed to the main display. "Madam President, as of 2 hours ago, we have stopped all cooperation with Galactic Council oversight. Our fleets are moving into offensive positions. Ambassador is on his way home." Lisa studied the display carefully. She was a grandmother and had been a teacher before becoming president. Her campaign had been about peace and education, but the weight of this decision showed clearly on her face. "They are still broadcasting recordings of the attack," she said quietly. "I watched some of it. I wish I had not." Said nothing. He had watched it too. Every commander in the fleet had watched. They needed to see exactly what they were fighting for. "Other council species are sending us messages," Lisa continued. "They want us to show restraint. They are threatening sanctions if we take aggressive action. They even said we should take years going through council courts to get justice." "Courts that would take forever and do nothing," Kate said with anger in her voice. "They just want us to be quiet and grateful that they let us exist." Lisa nodded slowly. "That is what I told them too. I also told them that any species that helps the will be treated as hostile. We are done playing by rules that only apply to us." She turned to face directly. "Admiral, I am authorizing military action. The goal is simple. Remove the ability to threaten human lives. If that means destroying their military, then do it. You have my permission to do whatever is necessary to win." Felt the weight of those words. She was giving him freedom to do what needed to be done. "There are limits, though," Lisa added firmly. "We are not like the civilian targets are off limits unless they are being used for military purposes. We will not commit crimes against innocent people. But we will make it absolutely clear that attacking humanity has a price too high for anyone to want to pay twice." "Understood, Madam President." Lisa looked around at all the people preparing for war. "I want the Galactic Council to watch what happens next. I want every species to see. When someone once asked me why humans insist on carrying weapons even in peaceful times, I told them it was because we know what evil looks like. We have seen it in our own history. We know that sometimes the only answer to violence is greater violence in return." She paused at the door. "Make them understand, Admiral. Make them understand that we are not prey. We are not victims. And most importantly, make them understand that there are some lines you simply do not cross." After she left, stood alone for a moment looking at the displays. Then he opened a channel to all human military forces everywhere. "This is Fleet Admiral Santos to all commands. You have all seen what happened at New Horizon. You have all lost friends or maybe family. Right now you are angry. Good, stay angry, let that anger fuel you and focus you, but remember this. We are not going out there for revenge. We are going to make sure this never happens again to any human anywhere. They thought we were weak because we chose peace and talking. They thought our patience was cowardice. They were wrong. By the time we are done, every species in this galaxy will know the price of human blood." He paused and then added more quietly. "Our ancestors had a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We spoke softly. They did not listen. Now they get the stick. All ships are weapons free. Execute Operation Righteous Fury. Show them what humanity does to those who harm our children." Across all of human space, warships that had been held back by treaties and council rules powered up weapons that the galaxy had never seen fully used. Humanity had been holding back, trying to fit in, trying to be part of the cosmic community. That time was over. They were about to learn a hard lesson. They were about to learn why life on Earth had been so brutal, and why surviving on humanity's home world had made them into something the peaceful galaxy could barely understand. They were about to learn that humans had the military station called Outpost Vex, floated in the darkness between stars. It was a huge structure made of metal and advanced technology. This station served as the command base for expansion into the Outer Rim. From this very place, had personally given the order to attack New Horizon Colony. Commander Tyler Jackson watched the station through the view screen of his ship. His ship was called the Wraith. It was one of humanity's most secret military vessels. Around him, his crew worked in almost complete silence. Their faces glowed from the light of their control panels. "How far to target?" Tyler asked quietly. 50,000 kilometers and getting closer," said his weapons officer. Her name was Lieutenant Emma Brooks. "Their sensors show nothing. Our stealth systems are working perfectly." Tyler nodded. The Galactic Council had strict rules about military technology. Certain weapons were completely banned. Certain ship abilities were not allowed. Humanity had signed those treaties 2 years ago. They were desperate to be accepted into galactic society. What the Council did not know was that humans had never stopped developing new weapons. They had just been very careful about what they showed to others. Humans had stealth technology that could fool the galaxy's best sensors. They had rail guns that could punch through shields the thought were impossible to break. They had laser weapons with power levels that broke every energy weapon treaty in Council records. Humanity had kept all of these technologies hidden. They had hoped they would never need to use them. That hope was dead now. It was buried in the ruins of New Horizon Colony along with 300 innocent people. "What is weapon status?" Tyler asked. "All railgun batteries are charged and ready. Missile tubes are loaded with plasma warheads. Fire control has target solutions on primary targets. Command center, shield generators, weapons arrays, and docking bays. Communications. Jammed. The moment we fire, they will be cut off from any help. I have also hacked into their internal systems. We now control their cameras." Tyler allowed himself a cold smile. "Good. I want to see us coming. I want him to have time to be afraid." He opened a channel to the other 2 destroyers in his task force. They were called Ghost and Shadow. They were positioned around the station in a perfect triangle of death. "All ships, this is Jackson. Target confirmation." Ghost confirms, "We control the north axis." Shadow confirms, "South axis is covered. They have nowhere to run." Tyler took a deep breath. This was it, the first strike of the war. After this, there would be no going back to the way things were. "Send the message," he ordered. Emma's fingers moved quickly across her controls. Throughout the entire station, every single screen suddenly showed the same thing. The human flag appeared. Below it was a simple message written in the galactic standard language. "For New Horizon, for our children, this is justice." In his command room saw the message. For the first time in his long military career, he felt real fear. He started shouting orders, but his communications were completely dead. His shields began to power up, but they were moving too slowly. The Wraith dropped its stealth field. It appeared on sensors like a ghost, becoming solid and real. Its rail guns fired. The difference between human weapons and Council weapons became clear immediately. Galactic warfare had developed in a certain way over thousands of years. Energy shields could absorb and spread out the power of energy weapons. Armor could block slow-moving projectiles. Battles were long affairs where shields slowly wore down through careful fighting. Humanity had learned to fight wars differently on Earth. Speed and overwhelming firepower had always been the keys to victory. The rail guns fired solid metal projectiles at a large fraction of the speed of light. They did not try to burn through shields slowly. They simply punched through them with pure force and speed. The first shots hit the station's shield generators. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons and deflect slow objects. They never had a chance against projectiles that hit with the force of small nuclear explosions. The generators blew up in bright flashes. The shields collapsed completely. The second round of shots targeted the weapons arrays. Weapons that had bombed human colonies stopped existing in brilliant explosions and clouds of debris. Ghost and Shadow added their fire. Everything was timed perfectly with the Wraith. In less than 30 seconds, Outpost Vex went from being a powerful military base to a crippled wreck. Air and debris sprayed out from huge holes in its hull. "Stop firing," Tyler ordered. "Give me damage assessment." "All primary targets are destroyed. Station is no longer combat effective. We estimate 70% casualties. Their command center is still intact but cut off from everything else." "Good, open a channel to the station. Maximum broadcast on all frequencies. I want the whole sector to hear this." The channel opened. Tyler could see on the screen. The commander was surrounded by smoke and sparking equipment. His mouthparts were shaking with a mix of rage and shock. "This is an act of war," said with hate in his voice. "The Galactic Council will condemn you. You will be branded as aggressors and criminals." Tyler leaned forward. His voice was cold and very clear. "Commander, you ordered the destruction of New Horizon Colony. You murdered 300 human civilians. 87 of them were children. You broadcast their deaths as entertainment, and you thought there would be no consequences." "The Council approved our territorial claims," said, but there was uncertainty in his tone now. "The Council failed us," Tyler said back. "So we will handle this problem ourselves. You wanted to teach humanity about power. Congratulations. You are about to become our first lesson to the galaxy." He nodded to Emma. "Send the package." Small pods launched from the Wraith. They attached themselves to the station's outer hull. Cameras inside the pods turned on. They provided live video feeds of the destruction inside the station. The broadcasts went out on every frequency. They were beamed to communication relay stations throughout the entire sector. "You are going to sit there in your broken station," Tyler continued, "and think about what you have done. You are going to think about those children you killed, and you are going to wonder if we are coming back to finish the job. Meanwhile, every species in this part of space is going to watch what happens when someone crosses humanity." "You cannot leave us here," said. There was clear fear in his voice now. "We need medical help. We need rescue ships." "You should have thought about that before you bombed a civilian colony," Tyler said with no emotion in his voice. "We have sent your location to the Council. Maybe they will send help. Maybe they will not. Either way, you are out of this war." He cut the transmission. "Helm, take us out, full stealth mode. We have other targets to visit tonight." As the Wraith and her sister ships disappeared back into the darkness of space, Outpost Vex drifted as a monument to human fury. The broadcasts continued. They showed soldiers desperately trying to save their wounded. They showed them trying to get basic life support working again. Every species with receivers in range was watching. The message was perfectly clear. Humanity had teeth, sharp teeth, and they had only just begun to bite. Across the border regions, more human strikes began. A fuel depot that supplied raiders simply exploded. A repair facility that fixed warships was reduced to scrap metal. A training base where young learned to be soldiers was left as a burning shell. Every attack followed the same pattern. Human ships appeared without warning. They hit with devastating firepower. They destroyed only military targets. Then they vanished before any help could arrive, and every attack was broadcast for the entire galaxy to see. The military leadership was in shock. They had been the dominant military force in this region for generations. Other species feared them. Their technology was considered advanced. Their tactics were proven through countless victories, but against humans, none of it mattered. Human weapons were simply better. Human tactics were faster and more brutal, and humans fought with a focus and determination that they had never encountered before. On Prime, their home world, Supreme Commander watched reports flood in. 17 military installations destroyed or crippled in just 3 days. The humans were not attacking randomly. They were systematically taking apart the ability to make war. How are they doing this? Demanded of his staff. How are they bypassing our sensors? How are their weapons so powerful? Nobody had good answers. The truth was simple but hard to accept. Humans had been preparing for this kind of war their entire history. On Earth, warfare had always been brutal and fast. The species that survived learned to strike hard and strike first. Now they were learning what it meant to fight true predators. A junior officer named spoke up nervously. Supreme Commander, we are receiving a transmission. It is on all frequencies from a human fleet. They say they are en route to our home system. Felt ice in his chest. They would not dare attack our home world. The transmission says they are not targeting the planet, continued. They are targeting all military installations in the Prime System. They are giving us 2 hours to evacuate. This is insane, said. Get me the Galactic Council immediately. When the connection was made, found himself looking at multiple alien representatives. They all looked disturbed and uncomfortable. The human aggression must be stopped, said desperately. They are attacking our sovereign territory without any provocation. Without provocation, one alien representative said. Commander, we have seen their broadcasts. The humans are quite clear about their reasons. You destroyed their colony. You killed their children. That was a territorial dispute, protested. We handled it according to our customs. By hunting down families, another alien said. By making sport of killing children, we have reviewed the evidence. Your forces did not simply remove settlers. You made it entertainment. And now, a third alien added, they are showing the entire galaxy what happens next. Every species is watching these broadcasts, watching as humanity takes apart your military piece by piece. His mouth parts clicked in frustration. You must force them to stop. That is what the Council is for. The humans have withdrawn from Council authority, the lead alien said. They no longer recognize our rules in this matter, and frankly, Commander, I am not sure we could stop them even if we tried. You are afraid of them, realized. We are realistic, one alien corrected. Your species has been the Council's military strength for generations. You are supposed to be the greatest warriors in known space, and in 3 days, these humans from one small planet have made you look like children playing at war. Before could respond, new alarms sounded throughout his command center. His face showed pure terror. Supreme Commander confirmed reports. Human fleet signatures detected throughout the Prime System. They are not at the border anymore. They are here. They are surrounding our orbital facilities right now. The display updated. It showed dozens of human warships positioned around shipyards, military academies, and defense stations. They were not near the planet itself, but they controlled everything else in the system. A transmission came through. The voice was calm and almost gentle. This is Admiral Santos of the Human Federation Fleet. Forces, power down and evacuate all military installations within 2 hours. This is your only warning. Could not believe what he was hearing. You dare come to our home system, you dare give us orders in our own space. Commander's voice continued, I want to be very clear with you. We are here to remove your ability to threaten humanity. We can do this in one of 2 ways. You can evacuate your military installations peacefully. We will then destroy only equipment and facilities, or you can fight. And we will destroy everything and everyone in our path. The choice is yours. The Council must hear this, said desperately. This is an invasion. The Council is hearing everything, replied. We are broadcasting this conversation to everyone. We want them to see that we gave you a choice, unlike what you gave the families at New Horizon Colony. Looked around his command center. His officers stared back at him, waiting for orders. The truth settled on him heavily. They could not win this fight. The humans had better technology, better tactics, and something they had never truly possessed. They had the will to fight with absolute conviction for something they believed in. Why? Asked quietly. Why go this far? It was one colony, a few hundred people. There was a long pause before answered. When he did, his voice was firm. One colony, 300 people, 87 children. You think that is small? Those were our people, our responsibility to protect. And we failed them because we listened to Council promises of justice. More war will achieve nothing, tried to argue. This is not war, corrected him. War would mean we consider you equals worthy of negotiation. This is something different. You made humanity choose between being civilized members of the galactic community and being survivors. You made us choose between our principles and our children. That was never really a choice at all. "What do you want from us?" finally asked. There was defeat in his voice. "Your military dismantled. Your ability to project force beyond your home world removed for at least a generation. Payment to the families of everyone who died at New Horizon, and you personally must face trial for war crimes. The Council will never allow this. The Council will do whatever we tell them," said flatly. "Because every species watching this broadcast just learned the same lesson you are learning right now. Do not attack humans, do not threaten their families, and definitely do not murder their children. Now, do we have an agreement, or do I give the order to start firing?" Looked at the display showing human ships positioned throughout his home system. He thought about the installations they had already destroyed across space. He thought about the devastating speed and precision of their attacks. And he realized that this was already over. It had been over the moment they attacked New Horizon Colony. They had just been too proud to realize it. 3 weeks had passed since the first human strike against the... In that time, the galaxy had watched something unprecedented unfold. The species that everyone thought of as newcomers, as junior members barely worthy of respect, had systematically destroyed the most feared military power in their region of space. The Galactic Council chamber was packed for an emergency session. This time was different from any before. The proceedings were being broadcast live to every world in Council space. Representatives from all member species filled the galleries. The air buzzed with nervous energy and barely contained fear. Ambassador Jake walked to the human podium. His steps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. Behind him stood Admiral Santos in full military dress uniform. He was a visible reminder of the force that had brought the galaxy to this moment. The council chair pulsed with nervous colors. It was the floating jellyfish creature that had humanity's request for justice 3 weeks ago. "Ambassador, you requested this session. The council recognizes your right to speak." Jake looked around the chamber slowly. He met the eyes of species that had once dismissed humanity as unimportant. They were not dismissing him now. Every single one of them looked at him with something between respect and fear. 3 weeks ago, Jake began, his voice clear and strong, the sovereignty attacked a human colony. They killed 300 civilians, 87 were children. When we brought this crime before the council, our request for justice. You told us to use diplomatic channels that we all knew would lead nowhere. Uncomfortable sounds rippled through the chamber. Several representatives shifted in their seats. "So we stopped asking for your permission," Jake continued. "We from your authority, and we handled the problem ourselves. In 3 weeks, we dismantled the military. We destroyed their ability to threaten not just humanity, but any species. We did what this council should have done. We protected the innocent." The representative floated forward. It was a peaceful species that prided itself on never using violence. "Ambassador, your actions have destroyed centuries of established order. Yes, the attack was terrible, but your response was far too extreme. You cannot simply ignore council authority whenever it suits you." "You are absolutely right," Jake said. Surprised murmurs went through the chamber. "We cannot ignore your authority only when we want to. That is why we are not ignoring it now. We are formally challenging it." The council chair's colors flashed bright alarm. "Challenging? What exactly do you mean by that?" Admiral stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried clearly through the chamber. "The Galactic Council operates under certain principles, correct? Protection of member species, peaceful resolution of conflicts, justice for those who are wronged. In the case of New Horizon Colony, you failed on every single one of those principles." "We were pursuing diplomatic solutions," the council chair protested weakly. "You were enabling aggression," corrected firmly. "They attacked human space because they believed your council would protect them from any real consequences. You created a system where the strong can prey on the weak. Then you congratulate yourselves on maintaining peace." An alien representative from the species spoke up. "So what do you propose? That humanity replaces the council, that you become the new galactic police force?" "No," Jake said firmly and clearly. "We propose something different. We propose actual justice, real consequences for aggression, and a council that protects all species equally, not just the ones with the biggest militaries or the most political power." He activated a holographic display. It showed a detailed document. "This is the human proposal for galactic reform. We are not asking for it to be adopted through your slow voting process. We are not requesting permission. We are stating very clearly that from this moment forward, these are the principles humanity will operate under. Any species that shares these values is welcome to join us. Any species that does not should stay out of our way. The document was surprisingly simple. Aggressive war was completely forbidden. Attacking civilians was never acceptable under any circumstances. Disputes would be decided by neutral parties with no political interests. Violations would face immediate and proportional response from all member species together. The acting commander stood up angrily. He had replaced after the human attacks. This is completely absurd. You cannot simply create your own rules and expect everyone to follow them. Why not? Jake asked calmly. That is exactly what the council did. You wrote rules that suited your purposes and protected your interests. We are just being more honest about what we are doing. The difference, added, is that we are willing to enforce our rules against anyone, including ourselves and our own people. We are submitting our own military actions against the to review by an independent tribunal. If they find we committed war crimes, we will accept the consequences and punishment. Can the council honestly say the same? The council chair pulsed with deeply agitated colors. This is completely unprecedented in galactic history. You are asking us to totally restructure how galactic governance works. No, Jake corrected carefully. We are telling you that humanity will no longer participate in a system that values proper procedure over actual justice. If the council wants to reform itself, we are willing to help and guide that process. If the council refuses, we will work with the species that do want something better. And if we actively oppose you? The representative asked very quietly. The chamber fell completely silent. Every being present understood what was being implied. Humanity had just proven they could completely dismantle the galaxy's strongest military force in 3 weeks. The unspoken question hung heavy in the air. What could humans do to species that actively worked against them? His answer was measured and deliberate. He chose each word carefully. We do not want opponents or enemies. We want partners and allies. We came to the stars hopping to find true civilization, real justice, and ancient wisdom. What we found instead was politics, bureaucracy, and cowardice in the face of evil. That is not your fault. It is just how your system evolved over time, but it does not work for us. The human proposal includes fair provisions for all species, Jake continued. Small species get exactly the same voice as large, powerful ones. Economic power does not determine who receives justice. And most importantly, attacking civilians becomes something that unites the entire galaxy in response. It does not become something we debate endlessly in committees while more innocents die. The council chair's colors shifted through several different patterns. Finally, they settled on something that might have been resignation or acceptance. And what happens if the council formally rejects this proposal? Then the council becomes irrelevant to the future of this galaxy, Jake said simply. Because humanity is already implementing these principles with or without you. And based on the private messages we have received, 43 other species want to join us. Not because they fear our military power, but because they are tired of living in a galaxy where the strong do whatever they want and the weak suffer whatever they must. He paused and then added more gently. You have had thousands of years to build your galactic civilization. You created something stable and mostly peaceful. That truly is an achievement worth recognizing. But you also created a system where a species like the could commit terrible atrocities and face no real punishment, where justice depends entirely on which species you belong to and how much power you have. That is simply not good enough anymore, not for us. The ambassador spoke again. And what if your human principles fail? What if your righteous fury leads to more violence instead of less? What if you become exactly what you fought against? Then we will have failed, Jake acknowledged honestly. But we will have failed while trying to build something better, not while maintaining something we know is broken. Our children died because we trusted your system. We will not make that same mistake ever again. He looked around the vast chamber one final time. His gaze touched every species present. Humanity came to the stars in peace. We wanted to learn from you. We wanted to grow and be part of something larger than ourselves. That is still what we want. But we learned something critically important these past few weeks. Peace without real justice is just slow-motion tyranny, and we are completely done being patient about it. The council will need significant time to deliberate on this proposal, the council chair said finally. Its colors showed uncertainty. Take all the time you need, Jake replied calmly. We are not waiting for anyone's permission anymore. We are building something new right now. You are welcome to join us, or you can choose not to. But either way, with you or without you, humanity moves forward into the future. As Jake left the chamber, the galaxy watched through countless screens and displays. Some species saw humanity's actions as dangerous precedent that could lead to chaos. Others saw real hope that maybe, finally, the rules of galactic civilization might apply equally to everyone regardless of size or power. On Earth, President Lisa Morgan watched the broadcast with her full cabinet. "Do you think they will accept the proposal?" her Secretary of State asked quietly. "Some species will accept it," Lisa replied thoughtfully. "Others will not, but that is not really the main point here. The point is that we showed every single species out there what happens when they push humanity too far. We showed them that we are not just another junior member begging for acceptance and approval. We are a force that will protect our own people, whatever the cost may be." "And if that makes us enemies with some species?" the Secretary asked with concern. "Then we will deal with enemies," Lisa said calmly but firmly. "But we will do it on our terms, by our rules, for our people. We spent 2 years trying desperately to fit into their galaxy and their system. Now they are going to learn to fit into ours." Above Earth, the human fleet that had brought the mighty to their knees returned home. Crews came off their ships to the cheers of massive crowds. These crowds had watched humanity finally stand up and be counted as equals. The fleet had gone to war for the oldest and most basic reason in all of human history. They went to protect their children from those who would harm them, and they had won decisively. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The species from the dangerous death world, the ones who had seemed so eager to please and fit in, had revealed what they truly were underneath. They were survivors who had clawed their way to the top of the most brutal evolutionary ladder in all of known space. They had chosen peace and diplomacy not from any weakness but from real strength. And when that peace was shattered, when their children were deliberately murdered, they had reminded the galaxy of an ancient truth. Predators learn to fear humans, and there is a reason for that fear. In the weeks and months that followed the council session, galactic society slowly began to change. The human proposal did not pass with unanimous support, but it did not need to. 43 species joined humanity in forming a new organization. They called it the Concordat. All members pledged to uphold actual justice rather than political convenience. Other species remained neutral and watched carefully. Some opposed it openly but very, very carefully. They had learned their lesson about what humanity's fury could accomplish. On the ruins of New Horizon Colony, now being carefully rebuilt, a memorial was erected. 300 names were carved into stone that would last for generations. 87 of those names belonged to children who would never grow up. At the very bottom of the memorial, workers carved a simple inscription. The words were chosen carefully to send a message that would echo across the stars. "We came in peace. We tried your way. We were patient. We were civilized. When you murdered our children, you reminded us of what we really are beneath the civilization. This is what happens when you awaken the fury of humanity. Remember these names, remember what their deaths cost you, and never ever forget this truth. We are predators, you are prey, we protect our young, and we never forgive those who harm them." The galaxy watched the memorial being built, and the galaxy remembered. Every species, from 6 months after the formation of the Concordat, the new organization held its first full assembly. The meeting took place on a neutral station that orbited a star halfway between human space and the territories of their new allies. The station had been built specifically for this purpose. It was a symbol of the new order that was taking shape in the galaxy. Captain Helen Brooks stood on the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel Horizon. She watched as ships from 43 different species arrived at the station. Each ship represented a civilization that had chosen to stand with humanity's vision of justice over the old council's way of doing things. "It is remarkable," said a voice beside her. Helen turned to see Ambassador Jake. He had been promoted to lead the entire Concordat diplomatic mission. 6 months ago, we were junior members being told where we could and could not go. Now we are reshaping galactic civilization. "Do you think it will last?" Helen asked. She was a veteran of the campaign. Her ship had been part of the task force that captured several key installations. She had seen firsthand what human fury could accomplish. But she also understood that building something new was harder than tearing something down. "It has to last," Jake said firmly, "because the alternative is going back to a system where might makes right and the weak have no protection. We cannot let that happen." Down in the station's main assembly hall, representatives from all Concordat species were gathering. The room was designed very differently from the old council chamber. There were no elevated positions. No species sat higher than any other. Every delegation had exactly the same space and the same access to speaking. Size and military power meant nothing here. Only ideas and principles mattered. Admiral Santos entered the hall with President Lisa Morgan. As humanity's representatives, they would formally open the first assembly, had retired from active military command to focus on building the Concordat's joint defense forces. It was a massive task. 43 different species meant 43 different military traditions, technologies, and ways of thinking about combat. The hall quieted as Lisa approached the central podium. She looked around at all the assembled species. Some were large and intimidating, others were small and fragile-looking. But they were all here because they believed in the same basic principles. Justice should be real, aggression should have consequences, and the strong should protect the weak, not prey on them. 6 months ago, Lisa began, humanity made a choice. We chose to stop being victims. We chose to stop accepting a system that valued procedure over justice. Some species thought we were being too aggressive, too violent, too emotional, but we knew something they did not. She paused and let her words hang in the air. We knew that evil ignored is evil accepted. We knew that injustice tolerated is injustice encouraged. And we knew that sometimes the only way to stop violence is with greater violence in return, not for revenge, not for conquest, but to make it absolutely clear that there are lines that cannot be crossed. A small alien from the species stood up. They were barely a meter tall and looked fragile, but they were brilliant engineers. The old council says we are destroying galactic peace. They say the Concordat will lead to more wars, not fewer. How do we answer them? With truth, Lisa replied. The old council kept peace by making the weak accept whatever the strong decided to do. That is not peace. That is just slow tyranny. Real peace comes when everyone knows that aggression will be met with immediate and unified response. When potential aggressors understand that the cost of violence is too high to ever be worth paying. Stepped forward. The Concordat military doctrine is simple, he said. We maintain strong defensive forces, we share technology and training, and we respond to any attack on any member species with overwhelming force from all member species together. No one stands alone, no one is too small to matter, and no aggressor can hope to divide us. A representative from the species rose. There were large reptilian beings who had been conquered by the 20 years earlier. They had joined the Concordat immediately after the defeat. The old council still commands loyalty from many species. They have economic power, they have ancient traditions. How do we compete with that? Jake stood to answer. We do not compete with them. We offer something different. The old council offers stability and tradition. We offer justice and protection. The old council promises that if you follow the rules and wait patiently, maybe someday you will get what you deserve. We promise that if someone attacks you, we will be there immediately with everything we have. It is a simple choice, Jake continued. Do you want to be part of a system where your voice matters only if you are already powerful? Or do you want to be part of something where every species has equal value and equal protection? The assembly continued for hours. Representatives raised concerns and asked questions. How would disputes between Concordat members be handled? What counted as legitimate self-defense versus aggression? How would they prevent the Concordat from becoming just another version of the old council? The answers were written into the Concordat Charter. Disputes would be arbitrated by panels of neutral species with no political interests in the outcome. Self-defense was clearly defined. Any species could challenge Concordat actions and demand review. And most importantly, the Concordat itself was designed to dissolve automatically if it ever stopped serving the interests of justice and peace. During a break in the proceedings, Helen found herself talking with a military commander named. His scales were from battles against the during their occupation of his world. Your people did something remarkable, said in his deep, rumbling voice. You showed the galaxy that the strong could be defeated, that justice was not just a pretty word for the weak to hope for. We did what we had to do, Helen replied. They murdered our children. No civilization worthy of the name could let that stand. But you did more than just defeat the, insisted. You could have taken their territory. You could have made them your subjects. You could have become the new dominant military power. Instead, you built this. He gestured around at the assembly hall. You chose to share power rather than hoard it. Helen smiled slightly. On Earth, we learned a hard lesson through our own history. Power concentrated in one place always corrupts, always leads to abuse. The only way to prevent tyranny is to spread power among many and make them work together. No one species, not even humanity, should have the ability to dominate all others. Across the hall, a group of smaller species were having a similar conversation. They had sent observers to the Concordat assembly, though they had not officially joined. One representative was speaking with an engineer. "I do not understand humans," they admitted. "They seem peaceful and reasonable. Then when threatened, they become the most terrifying force in the galaxy. How do you reconcile those two sides?" The engineer thought carefully before answering. "I think humans understand something that many peaceful species do not. They understand that there is a difference between choosing peace and being forced into submission. They chose peace when they joined the old council. But the moment that peace was broken, the moment their children were killed, they remembered what they really are." "And what is that?" "Survivors," they said simply. "Earth is what they call a death world. Everything there is trying to kill everything else. To reach the top of that world's food chain required becoming the most dangerous predator on the planet. Humans did not lose that nature when they became civilized. They just learned to control it and use it only when necessary." They considered this. "So you believe the Concordat is safe, that humans will not turn their fury against their allies?" "I believe the Concordat is the safest place in the galaxy," they replied with confidence. "Because humans protect what they consider theirs. If you are their ally, if you are part of their group, they will die to protect you. They learned what happens when you threaten humans. I would rather learn what it means to be protected by them." As the assembly reconvened, a new concern was raised. A species called they had been attacked by pirates on the edge of Concordat space. The pirates were from a region controlled by the old council. They believed Concordat species were easy targets since they were breaking away from traditional galactic authority. "This is exactly what we created the Concordat to prevent," said when he heard the report. "Any attack on any member species requires immediate response." "But the pirates are in council space," one representative objected. "If we send military forces there, it could start a real war with the old council." "Then we make it very clear that we are only targeting the pirates," replied. "We are not invading council space. We are protecting our people. If the council wants to protect pirates who attack our members, they can try, but I do not think they will." The decision was made quickly. A joint Concordat task force would be assembled. It would include ships from humanity, and 3 other species. They would hunt down the pirates and make it clear that Concordat members were not easy prey. Captain Helen Brooks was given command of the operation. Within 48 hours, her task force arrived at the home system. The pirates had attacked shipping there, believing the small species had no way to fight back. The pirates were in for a surprise. Helen's task force did not try to negotiate or warn them. They simply appeared, targeted every pirate ship, and destroyed them in less than 10 minutes. Then they broadcast a message to all nearby systems, both Concordat and Council-controlled. "This is Captain Helen Brooks of the Concordat Defense Force. Any attack on Concordat member species will be met with immediate and overwhelming response. We do not negotiate with pirates. We do not debate jurisdiction. We protect our own. This is your only warning." The message was received loud and clear. Within days, pirate attacks on Concordat shipping dropped to almost zero. Word spread quickly. The Concordat was not just words and principles. It was real protection backed by real force. Back at the assembly, the successful anti-piracy operation was being discussed. The representative, a small insect-like being, addressed the gathering. "My people have known fear for generations," she said in a high, chirping voice. "We are small. We are weak in physical terms. In the old council, we had to accept that larger species could do what they wanted to us. The council would express concern, but nothing would change. In 2 days, the Concordat did what the council could not do in 2 decades. You made us safe." Lisa Morgan nodded. "That is what the Concordat is for. Size does not matter. Military power does not matter. What matters is that we all agree to protect each other. When one suffers, all respond. That is what real civilization looks like." As the first assembly drew to a close, the representatives voted on several key measures. They established the Concordat Joint Defense Force officially. They created arbitration courts for disputes. They set up communication networks and intelligence sharing, and they sent a formal message to the old council. The message was simple and direct. The Concordat respected Council sovereignty. They would not attack Council territory or interfere in Council affairs. But they would also not accept Council authority over Concordat matters. Any Council species that wanted to join the Concordat was welcome. Those that wanted to remain in the old system could do so. But the days of the Council claiming universal authority were over. The galaxy now had two systems operating side by side. The old Council with its traditions and procedures, and the new Concordat with its focus on swift justice and mutual protection. Time would tell which system would ultimately prove more successful. But for the 43 species of the Concordat, the choice was already clear. They had seen what humanity could do when their children were threatened. They had seen the old Council's failure to act, and they had chosen to stand with those who would actually fight for them rather than those who would only express concern. As the assembly ended and ships prepared to depart, Jake stood with Admiral Santos on the observation deck. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Jake asked quietly. "Building something new instead of trying to reform what already existed." Watched the ships departing toward their home systems. "The old Council had thousands of years to get it right," he said. "They chose stability over justice every single time. You cannot reform a system that does not believe it needs reforming. And if we fail, if the Concordat falls apart, then at least we tried," replied. "At least we stood up and said that justice matters more than tradition, that protecting the innocent matters more than following procedure. Our children are watching what we build here. What kind of galaxy do we want to leave them?" Jake nodded slowly. "A galaxy where they are safe, where their lives matter, where someone will actually stand up for them if they are threatened." "Then we are building exactly what we need to build," said firmly, "and we will make it work whatever it takes." Above them, stars sparkled in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the old Council was watching and trying to decide how to respond. But here, in this new station, 43 species had made their choice. They had chosen justice. They had chosen protection. They had chosen humanity's way. And the galaxy would never be the same. The most powerful to the smallest understood the lesson that had been written in blood, and Humtu years had passed since the formation of the Concordat. What began as 43 species standing together had grown to 78. The new organization was no longer a radical experiment. It was becoming a permanent fixture of galactic civilization. Commander Cole stood on the bridge of the Concordat patrol ship Defender. His mixed crew represented 6 different species working together seamlessly. The communications officer was, the weapons officer was, the navigator was human-like. This was the new reality of the Concordat military. Species that had never worked together before now protected each other's lives daily. "Sir, we have a distress call," reported Lieutenant Pierce from communications. "It is coming from the border region between Concordat and Council space. A colony transport is under attack." "Whose colony?" asked immediately. "Council Registry," replied. "It is a civilian transport. They are carrying families to a new settlement world." Felt the decision settle on him. They were not Concordat members. They had remained neutral, staying with the old Council but not actively opposing the Concordat. Technically, protecting them was not his mission. But he remembered what Admiral Santos had said during his training. "We do not protect people because of what system they belong to. We protect them because it is right." "Set course for the distress signal," ordered. "Maximum speed, battle stations." The Defender leapt forward. Within minutes they arrived at the scene. 3 pirate vessels were surrounding the transport. The pirates were already firing on the defenseless ship. Escape pods were launching desperately into space. "All weapons target the pirate ships," commanded. "Disable them if possible, destroy them if necessary." The Defender's weapons were a combination of human and alien technology. The result was devastating. The first pirate ship lost all power before it could even react. The second tried to flee but was crippled by precise shots to its engines. The third turned to fight and was destroyed when it fired on the Defender. "Cease fire," ordered. "Begin rescue operations. Get those escape pods aboard, medical teams to the landing bay." As the Defender's crew worked to save civilians, opened a channel to the disabled pirate ships. "This is Commander Cole of the Concordat Defense Force. You have attacked a civilian transport carrying families and children. You are now prisoners. You will face trial under Concordat law for piracy and attempted murder." One of the pirate captains responded with anger. You have no authority here. This is council space. The Concordat has no jurisdiction. The Concordat has jurisdiction wherever innocent people need protection, replied coldly. That is what we were built for. You chose to attack defenseless civilians. Now you face the consequences. Within an hour, all the survivors were safely aboard the Defender. The pirate ships were taken under escort, prepared a full report to send to both Concordat Command and the Old Council. On the home world, the news of the rescue spread quickly. The Council convened an emergency meeting. For 2 years, they had watched the Concordat from a distance. They had seen its successes. They had also seen how the Old Council was slowly becoming less relevant as more species joined the Concordat. The humans saved our people, one council member said. They were not obligated to help. We are not their allies, but they came anyway. Because that is what they do, another replied. They protect the innocent regardless of politics or treaties. Perhaps we were wrong to remain neutral. The debate continued for days. Finally, the council made its decision. They would request to join the Concordat. It was a significant moment. They were one of the Old Council's founding species. Their departure would send a clear message about which system was actually working. On Earth, President Lisa Morgan received the news with quiet satisfaction. She had just finished a meeting with her successor. Her term was ending and a new president would take office soon, but the work she had started would continue. The Concordat is stable now, she told the president-elect, a former military officer named Daniel Wright. It has proven itself, but you must never forget why we built it, not for power, not for control, but to make sure that what happened at New Horizon never happens again to anyone. Daniel nodded seriously. I understand, Madam President. The galaxy has changed because we refuse to accept injustice. I will not let that legacy die. At the rebuilt New Horizon colony, a ceremony was taking place. The colony now held 5,000 people. It had become a symbol of human resilience. The memorial to the 300 victims stood at the center of the settlement. Today, representatives from all 78 Concordat species had gathered here. Ambassador Jake stood before the memorial. He was older now. The stress of building a new galactic order showed in the lines on his face, but his eyes were still bright with determination. 2 years ago, Jake said to the assembled crowd, this place was ashes and death. The Old Council told us to be patient, to wait for justice through proper channels, but we knew that justice delayed is justice, so we acted. He gestured to the memorial. These 300 names represent more than just lives lost. They represent a choice we made as a species. We chose to say no. No to a system that protected the powerful and ignored the weak. No to a galaxy where the murder of children could be dismissed as a territorial dispute. No to being patient while evil prospered. Around him, representatives from dozens of species listened quietly. Many of them had similar stories. They had been victims of the old system. They had been told to wait, to be patient, to work through proper channels while their people suffered. The Concordat is not perfect, Jake continued. We make mistakes, we struggle with disagreements, but we never lose sight of our core purpose. We protect the innocent, we provide real justice, and we prove every single day that size and power do not determine worth. A young engineer named raised her voice. Ambassador, what do you say to those who claim the Concordat is just another empire, that we are imposing our values on others? Jake smiled slightly. I say look at our actions. We do not conquer territory. We do not demand tribute. We do not force anyone to join us. We simply say this is what we believe and this is what we will defend. Any species that shares these values is welcome. Those that do not can go their own way, but if they attack the innocent, they will face consequences. The Old Council claims we are destabilizing the galaxy, added another representative. This one was from a species that had recently joined the Concordat. The Old Council is correct about one thing, Jake acknowledged. We are changing the galaxy, but destabilization and change are not the same thing, for the galaxy was stable because the weak accepted their weakness and the strong did as they pleased. We are ending that stability. We are replacing it with something better. Justice instead of order, protection instead of submission. That will always feel destabilizing to those who benefited from the old way. Admiral Santos stepped forward. He had traveled to New Horizon for this ceremony. At his side was Captain Tyler Jackson, the man who had led the first strike against the... Tyler now commanded an entire Concordat battle group that included ships from 12 different species. When we destroyed the military, said, many species thought we were showing off our power, trying to intimidate the galaxy. They were wrong. We were showing the galaxy what determination looks like, what happens when a species decides that enough is enough. He paused and looked at the memorial. Every single one of these 300 people matters, not because they were human, but because they were people, sentient beings with families and dreams and futures. The old council treated their deaths as statistics in a territorial dispute. We treated them as what they were, murder victims who deserved justice. Tyler spoke next. His voice carried the weight of experience. I was the first to strike back at I have spent 2 years thinking about that decision. Was it right? Was it too much? And I always come back to the same answer. Yes, it was right, because if we had not acted, they would have continued attacking. Other species would have learned that humanity could be hurt without consequences, and more innocents would have died. A representative, the small insect-like being whose species had been one of the first saved by Concordat forces, approached the podium. Her name was. My people were prey, said in her high voice. For generations, we accepted this. We were small and weak. The strong took from us, and we had no choice but to accept it. The old council told us this was simply how the galaxy worked. She looked around at the gathered species. Then humans showed us something different. They showed us that the strong could choose to protect the weak instead of prey on them. They showed us that we did not have to accept injustice just because we lacked physical power, and they invited us to stand with them as equals. That is the true gift of the Concordat, continued. Not protection from external threats, though that is important, but the knowledge that we matter, that our lives have value, that someone will actually fight for us if needed. That is worth more than any amount of territory or resources. As the ceremony continued, news arrived from across the galaxy. 3 more species had formally requested to join the Concordat. The old council was meeting to discuss how to respond to its shrinking influence. And in several border regions, conflicts that had simmered for decades were being resolved through Concordat arbitration. The change was real and growing. The galaxy was learning a new way to exist together, not through the dominance of the powerful, but through mutual protection and shared values. Later that evening, Jake walked alone to the memorial. The ceremony had ended, but he wanted a moment of quiet reflection. He read through the names carved in stone, 300 people, 87 children. I hope we did right by you, he said quietly to the names. I hope you would be proud of what came from your sacrifice. We built something new, something better, and we did it because we refused to forget you. A voice spoke behind him. They would be proud. Jake turned to see President Lisa Morgan. She had stayed after the ceremony as well. Do you really think so? Jake asked. I know so, Lisa replied firmly. We took the worst thing that could happen and turned it into a force for good. We showed the galaxy that humans are not just warriors. We are builders, protectors. We fight when we must, but we always fight for something worth protecting. They stood together in silence for a moment, looking at the memorial. What do you think the future holds? Jake finally asked. I think the Concordat will continue to grow, Lisa said. Not because we force it to, but because it offers something the old council never could. Real justice, real protection, real equality. And humanity's role in all of this. Lisa smiled. We will always be remembered as the species that said no, that refused to accept injustice even when it was easier to look away. That is our legacy, not conquest or dominance, but the courage to stand up when it mattered most. She looked up at the stars above them. Somewhere out there, other species are watching what we built, some with hope, some with fear, but all of them know one thing now. They know that humanity protects its own, and anyone who joins the Concordat becomes part of that protection. We made a lot of enemies along the way, Jake observed. We did, Lisa acknowledged, but we made more friends, and we proved that doing the right thing is more important than being liked by everyone. That is a lesson every civilization needs to learn eventually. As they left the memorial, Jake took one last look at the 300 names. The colony around them was alive with light and activity. Children played in streets that had once been ashes. Families built homes where there had been only destruction. Life continued. The dead were remembered, and their sacrifice had meaning. Across the galaxy, the Concordat continued its work, defending the weak, arbitrating disputes, building a civilization based on justice rather than power. It was not perfect. There were still conflicts and problems, but it was better than what had come before. And that ultimately was humanity's gift to the stars. Not advanced technology or military might, though those helped, but the simple understanding that civilization meant protecting the innocent, that justice was not negotiable, and that some lines must never be crossed. The galaxy had learned these lessons the hard way, through human fury and determination, through the systematic destruction of those who thought they could murder children without consequence, through the building of something new from the ashes of the old. 2 years after the attack on New Horizon, the galaxy was a different place, not because humans had conquered it, but because they had shown what was possible when species stood together for something larger than themselves. The old council still existed. It still had power and influence, but it was no longer the only option. Species could now choose between stability without justice or the Concordat's promise of protection for all. And more they were choosing the Concordat, choosing justice, choosing to stand with humanity and the 78 other species who believed that civilization meant more than just procedure and tradition. In the end, that was the real victory, not the military defeat not the establishment of a new organization, but the fundamental shift in how galactic civilization understood itself. The weak no longer had to accept their weakness. The strong could no longer do as they pleased without consequence. And justice was not just a word, but a reality backed by force and determination. This was humanity's legacy. This was what 300 deaths had purchased. A galaxy that was slowly learning to be better. Learning that the measure of civilization was not how it treated the powerful, but how it protected the powerless. And at the center of it all, carved in stone on a rebuilt colony world, 300 names stood as eternal reminder. This is what happens when you cross the line. This is what humanity does to protect its own. This is the price of awakening our fury. Remember these names, remember what they cost, and never forget the lesson they taught the galaxy. We are humanity, we protect the innocent, and we never forgive those who harm our children. And fury. There are lines that must never be crossed, and humanity had just drawn those lines in letters of fire across the stars. "I will order the evacuation," said quietly. The words tasted bitter. "Smart decision, you have 2 hours, Santos out." As the transmission ended, sat heavily in his command chair. Around him, officers began sending out evacuation orders to every military facility in the system. On screens throughout the command center, they could see broadcasts from other species' news services. The galaxy was indeed watching. And what they saw was humanity's message, delivered with brutal clarity and undeniable force. We are not prey, we are not victims, we are hunters, and we remember. Not reach the top of their planet's food chain by being gentle or kind to their enemies. The storm was coming, and it had human faces,